Hey guys, and warm welcome back to the channel. My name is Grace if you're new here, and this is The Rusty Thicket. I'm a watercolor artist and I'm running a small business called The Rusty Thicket from my home here in Okinawa, Japan, while my husband is stationed with the US Air Force. So if you've been following along, you know that I've had a really great season, and for just starting out, I am really happy with how my progress has gone this year, and I thought what I would do today is share the top 10 things that I think have helped me the most this year when making money at my small vendor events. I say small because most of these are about 10,000 people and less, and for this area it's very, very good. But I know stateside, when you do like state fairs and things like that, they're much, much larger. And I have a list here that I want to go through and share with you all, and a couple little examples that I think are really important for especially people starting out, but I think it could really apply for, you know, even in the future. It's stuff that I feel like I'll implement through my entire experience being an arts and crafts vendor. So the first thing I want to talk about is aesthetic. I think as a small business owner, and especially an artist, it's incredibly important to have a very well thought out aesthetic. They can be pretty loose and they can be pretty broad, but mine specifically, everything that is tied together in my art style is basically brought to you by 𝑓𝍊𝑋𝍊𝑋𝍊𝑋𝍊𝑋. Now, not every aesthetic is really going to have a name or anything like that. Mine just happens to. But what's so important about an aesthetic is that it is the visual representation of how all of your things cohesively talk together. It's like having, you know, not just a branding color, but then also the forethought, I suppose, to put all of those beautiful branding things together, but also having your furniture or your table setup match that. Your displays talk well together, things aren't mismatched, and it looks pleasing to the eye, not just when you walk by, but then also when you walk up to things. Because there's a few different examples that I can think of where, you know, the aesthetic, it looks good from a distance, but you get up on it and things are just a little mayhem, mixed matched, you know. A lot of stores do this. They put really beautiful things in the windows to draw you in, and then they kind of lose you once you walk through the door. An example would be like a department store. I don't think there's a very great aesthetic when you walk into a department store, but their window display is usually very, very beautiful and very put together. But if you go to like a smaller boutique, or, you know, even something that has a very noticeable color palette, or something like Maurice's, or, you know, even like H&M, they typically have all of like the same kind of palette at the same time. I guess it would just depend on, you know, what your aesthetic that you are attracted to is, of course, and that's definitely going to play into whether or not your aesthetic for your shop is speaking to other people as well. But I feel like for mine especially, when people walk up to my table, they love how it looks and how everything is together because they've told me this, but it's also because I know that that's what I would want to see when I go to an event. That is what would draw me in and then make me stay and want to purchase those items. Now, going off of sort of that same thing is your display. Your display wants to talk to your aesthetic as well as it can. You don't want crazy colored bright pink and neon green furniture like display stands and things if you are more sort of into nature and jewel tones when it comes to your actual artwork. There are instances where this kind of works, I suppose. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but typically you want, you know, more neutral tones anyway for your display stand, so it's not taking away from the actual work that you have out on the table. You want them to aid your artwork, not take away from it. For me personally, I think the best thing that I've spent money on so far display-wise is the multiple tiered, I call it a card holder, but I use it for my framed artwork since they're so small. I'll try to put an image on the video for you. But it enables people to see everything clearly. You want display items that are not just easy for you to haul in and out and for you to put up on your table, but also easy for people to be able to browse your work without having to, you know, dig through too much stuff. Sometimes it's fun to dig through a bin, and that there's definitely a place for that, especially when you have lots and lots of prints and things like that. But for the most part, the more display you have in levels, the easier it is for your eye to travel through the table and find the things that, you know, you might find interesting to purchase. And then kind of to wrap those two together, you just want things to be cohesive. If your artwork is a certain way, you have your display a certain way, then your aesthetic is talking together and everything looks like it's on purpose and like you've done it for a reason, and that always means that it looks elevated. You have more time and more energy put into things. Your tablecloths match, your, you know, even your outfit matters. If you're trying to stand out and be really flashy and you want to wear a wild shirt and that kind of goes with your brand, then that's great. But if it's not how things are, having crazy bright neon shirts and things when you're really typically working with jewel tones, I just feel like you want to be a part of your work and not stand too far away from it, unless you're specifically trying to make that work as, like, you know, part of your, hey, look at me kind of stuff. But usually I'm not. I want my stuff to be all really cozy and relaxing and just look all the part. And to be cohesive, I feel like means that you have strategically done that and put thought into that. And I think on my personal level, I find that attractive in businesses. So the next thing that I find the most important is pricing, but not necessarily how you've priced your items. I find that specifically very difficult to price items. What I mean is all of your pricing should be on either every single item or very clear within that group of items. You don't want to do a list of items and then have prices next to it. What you call something may not be what that other person thinks that it is, and it's difficult to find the price. And a lot of people will just leave your table if they can't see prices. They don't always necessarily want to ask about prices. They don't always necessarily even want to talk to you. Thankfully, with art, I feel like it's a little more common for people to chat together about it, and we'll get to that at the end because I think it's important also. But pricing is something I feel like if you don't have very obvious, very clear, it will set you back. I think that people ultimately just don't want to talk about numbers. They don't want to talk about money, but if they see the price, they like the item, and then you hand them over and add things up and let them know their total, nobody has any issues. If they hand it over and you're like, oh, that's $15 or something, I don't know, and they expected it to be way less because they looked at a price sheet and they thought it was one thing, it just gets really confusing. And then you also have to keep up with that. If it's not marked for yourself, you have to memorize all of your own prices. And I feel like that can just be a really, really long, stressful day, especially if you're very, very busy. I know that for me, that would not have worked at my most recent large event at Tinseltown. It would have been crazy because I worked the booth by myself the entire evening. All right, so we talked about the aesthetic, your display, pricing, the visual aspect of pricing your items, and having everything look cohesive. So number five, one of the things I think is really important, at least for my booth and for my items, is to have some really eye-catching stuff. It's not necessarily always going to sell, and they don't have to be your most expensive items either, but anything that's like, especially if you're outside, anything that's going to catch the sun or twinkle a little bit, or is like a larger item that you can see from a further distance to kind of draw people in. Signage even works this way if you don't have specific items. I just noticed that, you know, after I've put out a sign, or if I've made some much larger items than I typically have, and you can see them from a distance, people definitely want to know more about them and will come into your booth. Number 6, I think, after talking to a lot of vendors too over the summer especially, the thing that has saved me the most when it comes to making the profits that I would like to see is to have a lot of small items priced really affordably. Now this isn't going to work for everybody. I like to make little tiny terrarium things and to have little charms, and you know, it's very Goblin Core to have little trinkets and stuff that, you know, people just want to go home and set on their little nightstand tables. So it works well for me, but the smaller priced items draw people in, and if they're already spending $5, they might as well buy a couple more things and just hand you a $10 bill. And it's worked really well in the past to, you know, have somebody see a $4 sticker and then a $5 item, and that's $9, and you know, they can just hand you a 10 and get some change, and they've bought 2 items instead of 1. And I know that it seems maybe a little ridiculous and sometimes time consuming to have to come up with all the little items and stuff, but little money adds up quick. And when they have 5 kids and they all get a $5 item, that's $25. And for me, it works. I have my larger priced stuff, and sometimes I get, you know, 2 or 3 of those versus the 10 and 12 of the small items, and everything ends up being nearly the same when you know, kind of look over it all together anyway. And plus, if you have a specific kind of business that caters more towards kids, parents are more willing to buy a $5 item versus a $25 painting for their room. And I don't know, I just find it fun to have the little stuff. They usually make great stocking stuffers or little extra birthday things or something they can take to their teacher. All kinds of reasons to have, you know, between like $3 and $8 little items. So that takes me to number 7. Because I have all of these small items, and because when people are purchasing things in large amounts, say they have 5 kids, they're always holding stuff. And, you know, if you were in a grocery store or a regular department store, you would have either a buggy or a shopping cart, something like that. So I actually saw this on TikTok, and I may have mentioned it before on the channel, I can't remember. But making little shopping carts or buying little baskets that they can kind of hold all their stuff in while they're walking around and looking at all of your things and keeping it together, and then they can just hand you the shopping cart whenever they're done, and then that way everything is corralled for you to then add everything up and let them know their totals. For this one, it's literally just a little, I think it's like a drawer organizer like you would get for like your spoons and stuff. I bought it at the Serious section, which is $1, and I got 5 of them, so like 500 yen, I think, for all of them. And then I just added my little sticker at the bottom, just so that, you know, it's like a little logo. Eventually I'll update these when my logo stickers come in, but people love it. They think it's really cute. And anytime somebody's got more than 1 item in their hand, I just go ahead and offer it to them. I usually keep them back there with me because otherwise they ask me what they are, which isn't a big deal, but you know, sometimes not everybody's looking for a shopping cart and they're just like, why does she have a little box with a sticker in it? But when I do explain it to them, they really love them. They think that it's really cute, and I definitely have found that if you give them a shopping cart, they buy more stuff. And if you don't believe me on the science behind that, you should look up Walmart and their buggy situation, because it's a thing. But anyway, so shopping carts, great idea. You could really go all out with these. If you have large items, you could get real shopping carts. You can find those on Amazon. You can make them totally your own. I think it's really cute. All right, so number 8, something that I have done more recently. I realized that I was kind of having some pieces that weren't selling like some of the others, or maybe I just wasn't as much of a fan of them as, you know, when I had initially made them. Or maybe they're seconds, or, you know, something is just not 100% perfect on them and you don't want to sell them at full price, I hold those back. And after a little while, I decided, I don't know what I'm going to do with these. People aren't really going to purchase them unless I like make a deal. So what I decided to do was mystery bags. I put a single price over every single bag. I make every bag worth whatever that price is and then some, so that it is an incentive for them to purchase that entire bag of stuff that I either couldn't sell as is, or I didn't want to put a price tag on because of the mess up or anything like that. And I just put a little card in there usually that says, you know, something like, you know, thank you for purchasing this mystery bag. It's all made with love, but maybe some, you know, slightly larger imperfections than I would typically have on the table. Or if it's just like an older season, something that isn't rolling into my new season the same way, I'll stick it in there too. The last couple ones I've done were $20 and they went really well and people were very, very excited to have them. So my actually last event of the year is going to end up being just a full table of mystery bags of everything that I have left, because I have all new stuff coming out next year. And I just want a brand new clean slate and give everybody a little chance to get some extra stuff from me this year. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and I will update you on that whenever I complete that event tomorrow, actually. All right, number 9, kind of going off of the mystery bags, is freebies. So not everybody's going to be able to do this, and I'm fully aware that not everybody's business even allows you, you know, to make an item that would become a freebie. For me, it's going to be stickers almost every time, just because I can have so many of them made, and not just that the cost doesn't hurt me or anything like that, but, you know, stickers are something that a lot of people will purchase on their own anyway. So if you give it to them as a freebie, they're really tickled about it. And offering a free sticker or, you know, a free pack of stickers or something like that with any purchase helps your prices go up, or will your overall income go up. But it also just gets them in the door to, you know, look at the other things that you have, because maybe they want a sticker already, and that's just a way to kind of, you know, put the cherry on the top. And I don't know other freebies. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I have done like if you spend so much money, you get something. And every time I do that, I feel like, I just think that the sticker goes better. So if you're purchasing anything, you get a sticker. $5, you get a sticker. $25, you get a sticker. It's an incentive for them, but it gives me something to kind of say when they walk into the booth also, just to kind of keep that engagement together. So that brings me to number 10. Out of all the top ways that I think that you can make money at your vendor events, especially as an art and craft vendor, is to just talk about your art. Talk about your craft. Talk about what you're doing and why you make the things that you do, and, you know, what your favorite pieces are, and just try to keep a conversation. You don't have to be pushy about sales. You don't have to ask people anything personal or talk about the weather. You can just talk about your art. And sometimes it's really nice to have that little small talk right when somebody walks in the booth, and then you don't really have to say anything after that. But sometimes it's really nice to just sit and chat with people about your stuff. I mean, maybe it's an extrovert thing, and if you're an introvert, I'm not saying that this is a necessary thing that you have to do to make sales, but I do feel like when people are engaged with you and they know your story and the reason that you're doing things, it just makes the most sense for them to then want to purchase your items. They have an emotional connection, which is the entire point in art anyway, is to have an emotional connection to something. And without being able to talk to someone about their art, I think it can just kind of be glossed over and looked at. And not everybody wants to sit and chat, and that's fine too. And you'll know those people when you see them. You know, have a little line to say, like, you can say your name. If you're interested, this is my aesthetic. You know, I've had a sign on my desk for a little while, or on my table for a little while now, that says ask me about 𝍊🼼🍊🍆, because a lot of people know what cottagecore is, and they can see that I like frogs and mushrooms, but they don't realize that technically my aesthetic and the things that I love to paint and draw has a name, and that really brings people in to chat about it. And I think after explaining to them why I love bugs and moss and all the kind of ugly things, it gives them a reason to want something from my booth of their own. And I think that is just the most important part. Plus, why wouldn't you want to talk about your art? I think that art is very personal and it's fun to talk about. And I just enjoy that aspect of being a vendor. It's why I've always wanted to be a vendor in the first place, if I'm honest, is to have that enjoyment with connecting with people. So yeah, that's my top 10 ways that I feel like you can improve your sales. Obviously, I am still in the growing process, and one day I hope that pays off even more than it already has. So make sure you guys leave a comment down below if you have any extra tips that you would like to throw out there, or what you think about these top 10 items, because I think overall, implementing these throughout the year, I have definitely seen a positive growth in nearly every aspect of my business, including my social media, but obviously sales as well. I have returned people who just want to sit and chat with me about the bugs and things, because I also happen to know facts about a lot of them because I love them. And I keep the kids engaged, and that is interesting for the parents. So I just have a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoy these top 10 ways to make extra money at your vendor events, because they have worked for me and I hope they work for you guys. So I will see you in the next video. I am currently in Tennessee while you're watching this, so hopefully it's snowing. We've got a couple more videos before I will return back to Okinawa, so stay tuned for those, and I will see you guys then. Bye guys.